You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Happy Friday. This is Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. It's Lee from Huntsville sitting in for Phil Williams, live from the Rightside studios. Got the local, the state, the national, all the issues, solid, conservative, and just plain right. I'm excited to be here. Butters, I haven't worked with you before.
I'm excited to have you here. This has been a crazy week with Phil going to Tuscaloosa, and yeah, it's been great. So why not throw in one last twist for the week and guest host? This is going to be awesome.
And I'll bring a little Alabama zhuzh to the.
Well, I don't know, War Eagle. We'll see how that goes, but. No, from what I understand, you're far more of a pro at this than I am. So,
well, we'll see.
All right,
you're going to need a miracle to keep up with me.
All right. I'm all ears.
I was hinting at the Milrow miracle. I'm sorry, or the disaster in the pasture, however you want to say it. I have to rub it in just a little bit, and Phil's not here, so. Happy Friday, everybody! It's Friday, as Phil would say. So excited to be here. Glad to fill in. And I have a triple dipper for today. I'm going to hit that sound effect there.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
So I've got dinks on the rise. We'll talk more about what dinks means for my first triple dipper. Second is, let's read Alabama. There is a question mark on the end of that. And for a third triple dipper, cacophony of noise.
Cacophony. That's
a good word.
That's a big word.
I was an English, major until I decided couldn't make any money or might have to teach. So I went into business instead, but I still retained some of that.
Well, the text lines are open, so for some of you, please go look up cacophony and text it in to me so I don't have to look it up.
Well, and I want to go ahead and I did prepare a monologue. I like to keep things as Phil does it. He's got a good program, good process. It's a Nick Saban thing, the process. So I like to keep the process.
Yes, I'm fairly sure Phil did not model it off of Nick Saban, but you could do worse. I'll admit you could do worse. For real. So I have to get as many digs in as I can. Okay, so I love the story A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. I go to the production every year for over 20 years at Fantasy Playhouse, and I highly recommend it. It's a quality show. I watched the movie several iterations. I can't say what my favorite Scrooge is, probably Kelsey Grammer. This year, I also watched the movie The Man Who Invented Christmas, which was based on Charles Dickens as he was writing this story, A Christmas Carol. I was surprised that Christmas in 1843 was considered a minor holiday. How could the birth of Jesus be minor? How could such a wonderful, heartfelt season be considered minor? To me, the holiday season is full of fun activities, family time, parades, football, food, and generosity. It's easy to get wrapped up in the season and your own situation or circumstances. You become determined to find the most coveted gifts, and you're just giddy with anticipation of the squeal of a child getting exactly what they wanted. You start Thanksgiving, and it doesn't stop until after New Year's Day. The family gatherings, giving thanks, it melts into Christmas decorations, shopping, work and friends parties, Hallmark movies, and so much more. You can turn around and it's the beginning of the year. It's my favorite time of year and would be my most major holiday celebrated. I was surprised to discover this wasn't always so. In the early years of Christianity, Easter was the main holiday, which does make sense being when Christ rose and, as a savior for us all.
but his birth wasn't celebrated. The church in Rome began formally celebrating Christmas on December 25th in AD 336, during the reign of Emperor Constantine. As he had made Christianity the effective religion of the empire, some had speculated that choosing this date had the potential motive of weakening the established pagan celebration of Saturnalia, which centered around the winter solstice. On Christmas, believers attended church, then celebrated raucously in a drunken Mardi Gras-style atmosphere. The poor would go to the houses of the rich and demand the best food and drink. If the owners failed to comply, their visitors would most likely terrorize them with mischief. Christmas became the time of year when upper class could repay their real or imagined debt to society by entertaining those less fortunate. The traditions continued in many countries and societies in similar ways for over 1,000 years. Fast forward to 19th century, and Charles Dickens and his wife are expecting their 5th child. He had 10, by the way. He's had a string of disappointing books and needs a hit to help support his family. He decides to write a Christmas ghost story after watching his kids sit enraptured by stories told by his Irish housemaid. His publishers were not on board with the idea, and so he parted ways to self-publish his novel. He writes it, has illustrations drawn, and publishes within 6 weeks, a breakneck pace, and it's an incredible success. All 6,000 copies sell out by Christmas Day, and it receives glowing reviews. A little-known fact that is revealed in the movie is that Dickens was going to kill off Tiny Tim, and in the end, Ebenezer would just meet his grave, which just seems depressing. After pleas from his housemaid, friends, and family, he decides to change the story to one of redemption and Christian charity, helping to change the way the English and American view and celebrate Christmas. Ebenezer's famous lines when asked to donate to the poor are there no prisons? Are there no houses? Those are cold and hard-hitting. His response when told many would rather die than go to those places, it embodied some in the English upper-crust society when he said if they would rather die, they had better do it and decrease the surplus population. The total lack of caring for humanity is in stark contrast to Jesus' command to love one another. In the end, Scrooge is moved by the visits of the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future, and makes a radical change in his worldview. He is redeemed, in a way, like Christ redeemed us at the cross. I'm so thankful for that Irish maid who pleaded with Dickens to save Tiny Tim and redeem Ebenezer. What would Christmas be today without that ending? Would it be the wonderful time of year that we currently celebrate? Did Dickens realize before his passing that he had single-handedly changed the way Americans and the English view Christian charity? Immediately after his novel was published, giving increased substantially for the poor in England. A mirror of sorts was held up to their faces, and they didn't like what they saw. They decided that, to quote Marley's Ghost, mankind was their business. Have we as an American society become so self-absorbed or busy, for lack of a better word, that we can't see the poverty and need that's at our doorstep? We must make sure we include mankind on our shopping list. Always carry an extra 20 on you for the unexpected blessing of others. Don't forget the charities whose bottom line depend on Christmas giving. And remember that lonely neighbor that may not have family or friends this time of year. Let's make sure that mankind is our business this Christmas. That's a wrap for the Right Side Way. All righty. We will be back in just a moment, and we'll talk about a few things coming up, including some calls in the second hour about our library system and the exciting changes that are happening. Look forward to seeing you guys right back. back. We are back. So this is Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. This is Lee sitting in for Phil Williams. And the text lines are open, guys, so please make sure and text me responses. Let me know what you think. Can't wait to hear what my score is, John, at the end of the time. I'm hoping to get to all three different so I get that A triple plus.
I think you should get the A triple plus just for being here and braving the show. So,
well, I'm not new, so I feel like I have enough experience that I shouldn't get too much of an extra bump for that. But excited to be here, though, nonetheless. I did want to say TL from Huntsville said, great job, Lee, a monologue to melt the hardest of hearts for a festive and charitable holiday season. Redemption is needed by all. Amen, TL. We all need redemption, don't we? Also had Jeremy from Huntsville, who was going to be really clever. Bravo, great monologue. God bless us all, everyone. I totally agree. Got a little Tiny Tim in there. It was a little shocking, Butters, that when I saw that he was going to kill off Tiny Tim.
Yeah,
I'm like, what?
That's interesting. I'm glad. I'm glad you're here today. I learned something about Dickens. So,
if you have Prime, I think it's Prime, or it could be Hulu. It's called The Man Who Saved Christmas. So I suggest watching it. It's very interesting. Although the actor, he was on Downton Abbey. I can't remember his name, but much better looking than Dickens. Like if you look up a picture of Dickens, but Dickens had 10 kids, so obviously there was something there. But
yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it when I saw it, and thank God for that Irish, chambermaid there, because she was right on. She just begged him not to kill Tiny Tim and just cried about it, and I'm like, amen. What would it be if he did? And then there was no redemption for Scrooge, and he just went on and died. That would just be so depressing.
Well, so during the break there, we were discussing it's Spirited on Apple TV. I don't know if anybody's watched that. Will Ferrell and Ryan Reynolds, of course, not a really Christian-centric, but all a different twist on the Dickens, the Dickens story, and a lot of fun. So I happened to watch that last night, so it was great.
You were telling me the premise, and that sounds really interesting.
I think it came out last year, so recommend if you're looking for a little Christmas fun. It's a musical style, so if you don't like musicals, then but Will Ferrell and Ryan Reynolds, it's gonna be hysterical.
They're both so good. I don't like everything of Will Ferrell's, but I like most, especially Talladega Nights, the 6 pound 8 ounce baby Jesus. That's one of my favorites. But Ryan Reynolds is just always good. He's just such a good comedian. He comes across so well. And you saying that he kind of plays the protagonist in there, I can't imagine him playing a character that's hard-hearted, because he's always so nice.
Well, and that's the interesting thing it's more not necessarily hard-hearted, as he's just a busy business guy and doesn't want to deal with kids and doesn't like he's doing the thing, and that's actually fairly in line with the politics of today, and he works consulting for politicians and creating commotion and telling false stories and pushing false narratives and the turmoil that can create, and it's a very I was very well done. So and I know it's a year old, but
I'll have to check that out. Although I guess Mankind was his business, but maybe not in the right way. Manipulating mankind.
Yes, but no, it was it's a good one. So
sounds like it.
I'm looking forward to the Daily Wire crowd doing some new spin on Dickens. That could be a lot of fun, but I don't know what all they've got in the hopper. So
have you ever seen a Christmas Carol like in Huntsville? They have it at Fantasy Playhouse every year.
I have not.
It's really good. There was an attorney in Huntsville that did it for years. Rankin Sneed. Oh man, attorneys have to have a flair for the dramatic anyway.
Yeah.
So he was great. He was a really good. They have quality acting. Like a lot of times you go to, smaller, acting groups, and it's kind of iffy. This is really well done. I highly encourage anyone to go. And a lot of times they'll have extra tickets. You can just call and ask. So we go every year and just really love it. It's just part of our Christmas routine.
Well,
Tinsel Trail, that, Nutcracker, you name it. I'm a holiday person.
I'm curious. We're actually getting some good texts in here, guys. What is the routine around Northeast Alabama? What do you guys do as kind of your family traditions? Love to hear from you. Yeah,
I wonder if anybody else is a Christmas Carol person like me, or the tinsel. I love the Tinsel Trail. That's always fun to go and look, and there's always some great trees. Have you ever walk through that?
I have not. I haven't been.
Dude, you got to get up to Huntsville.
Well, so I actually, as a reservist, I drilled up on Redstone a lot. Spent a number of years when I got off active duty. So I'm not an Alabama guy. I grew up in South Carolina and then been here for, I guess now 12 years. I guess I'm a.
So you're an Alabama guy now?
Yeah, I guess so. All right, fine. I'll go to Huntsville.
You chose a school. That's required when you move here.
I went to school there. So.
Oh, okay. So
yeah, I went to Auburn.
Graduate.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
all right. That's legit.
No, I love Huntsville. Just I guess I just don't get out much. Sorry, I'm stuck here in the studio.
That's true. Yeah. That's true. But there's just a lot of fun things to do during the holidays. I really enjoy it. It's a time of year where people are just happier, and usually more polite, nicer. Everybody's smiling. You get to say Merry Christmas. It's just, I don't know. People seem to have spring in their step, so it's kind of fun to go out and do things.
Yeah, I miss. I grew up caroling as a kid. That was one of the traditions. I was always kind of marked that, and that's not something I've really done in my adulthood. And I don't know, these days, it's just, I don't know, strangers knocking on doors is just not so. Maybe if we text your neighbors, hey, I'm about to come sing, you want to come stand out on the porch?
Do you know where that came from, where caroling came from?
No, I didn't.
The Saturnalia celebration, they would carol, and sometimes in like sheer garments. Can you imagine if your neighbor showed up in sheer garments singing?
Yeah, I don't know. These days,
Exactly. But that originated, I believe, with that time period that long ago. They would go around and sing. Of course, they were all drinking as well. So I mean, hilarity ensued. But goodness.
Well, I would have been So I don't know. I haven't had carolers come to my house and really pretty much since I've been an adult. So does anybody still do that?
Yeah, I don't know. It's been a very long time for me. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah. All right.
Well, we'll be back shortly. Y'all hang on.
Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right.
Welcome back. This is Lee sitting in for Phil Williams and just kind of talking about some Christmas things that we enjoy doing at Christmas time, fun activities, movies. And I do want to mention, John from Huntsville said, I think there should be a Hallmark movie starring Butters and Lee. What would the title of that be?
I'm not sure, and we don't need anyone to text in, so don't recommend any titles. Maybe Trainwreck. I don't know.
I think we're doing okay.
Oh, I think we're doing great. It's a Friday. I mean, how bad can it get?
That's what I say. Butters and Lee's kind of already sounds like a cookie mix, or something.
All right.
Yeah.
We'll hash out a business plan on the next break. So,
JT from Lacey Springs said, Lee, you're off to a good start. Since you're all about football punting, we have seen how good of a senator Tuberville is. Imagine how great a president Saban would be. And my answer is absolutely not. No, we're not sharing him with the country, and the process won't work with senators because they are not college students who are on board. So they would laugh at the process. So no, sadly, we want to keep him right in Tuscaloosa. But I appreciate
he wouldn't probably get any votes from Florida State fans. So
Oh, you don't think so? He'd lose Florida?
Yeah.
I don't know. The Florida fans might hate vote him, because isn't that their big rival?
I don't know.
Okay. I think no, he's pretty good, but you'd have the whole entire state of Alabama practically. And I just think that was a very funny comment. So thank you for that. And Brian mentioned that everyone is happier except when driving. So that's probably true. There's still aggressive drivers out there. Well, on to my first dipper. Got to make sure I get all those in. John's grading me right now.
Absolutely.
Talking about dinks, and it's funny because I entitled it "Dinks Are on the Rise." And if those of you aren't familiar, a dink is it's an acronym for Dual Income No Kids, which is funny because one of my children let me know that they were a dink, and it was right before I was going to talk about this, and I thought that was funny. Maybe because there was this been talked about a lot because there's this couple that did some videos on X, which drew comments from the big man himself. So this couple named Lily and Evan from Utah, they put these videos out saying things like, "We're dinks. We're going to get asked daily when we plan on having kids. We're dinks. Of course, we're going to go out to eat every night after work." They add things like, I don't have to, or they didn't have to ask their family for financial help or babysitters. And they go to Costco and bulk buy all the snacks they want. They sound, 14. The other things they mentioned were how much disposable income they had to spend on what they wanted and the freedom to go to football games or play golf whenever they wanted to. So I thought all that, that's nice. Most of us are in that space for at least some portion of time after we get together with our spouse, right? I mean, you're going to have I remember thinking, when I had my first child, that it was like an act of Congress to get out of the house and how much easier it was before when you didn't have that. So I do agree. There are some things that are interesting, but it was funny because the comments I don't think were what they expected. So Butters, one person said, "Congrats, you're both genetic dead ends." I was like, "Geez,
that's harsh."
Yeah. And someone else said, "Enjoy your highly depressive and meaningless existence." Yikes. I personally don't think everyone is meant to have children. I think it's fine. Some people are just not kids people, and some people with kids shouldn't be kids people, but yet they have them. I think you can probably agree with that.
Oh, yeah.
But I think that it was interesting to see Elon's response. And so to have him reply to, it's going to send it into the stratosphere. So these people are like plastered everywhere now. But his response was, there is an awful morality to those who deliberately have no kids. They are effectively demanding that other people's kids take care of them in their old age. That's messed up. So I think what he's referring to, of course, is just because at this point you can pay into Medicare and Medicaid, but you're just paying for those that are one step, one generation above you. It's not like you're actually putting away money for yourself, essentially.
And I think it is. I mean, it's the natural progression of society, right? I mean, even if you set our modern complex economy aside, it's the basics that, okay, you're productive, and then in your older age, somebody else is providing for you in some way. And yeah, that's it's an interesting take from Elon Musk on intentionally not having kids. Although I do hear a lot of conversation going on about, there's a lot of the 20-somethings that are choosing even not to marry, and the fertility rates and the child. I think I heard a statistic not long ago that, like, for the first time in history, you've got more 40-year-old women with kids than you do 20-year-old women. That
is wild. And that's a little
bit.
Don't
quote me on that. I need to go look up that statistic. But
that's kind of scary too, because the older you get, the more chance of mutations and problems, and your prime fertility is at 20, actually.
Yeah.
So I mean, not that I'm saying that you should have kids at 20, but I'm saying that genetically, in your body, that's your prime time. I don't know. I think I get what he's saying, but at the same time, he has 10 children. So I'm like, well, that changes the way you look at his comment a bit. He definitely believes in propagating, right? But I often wonder, this is a really big trend on TikTok, and I think it's trending because the Western world's our replacement rate is dropping like a stone. We're going to have a population deficit that's extreme in like 30, 40 years. It's going to go off a cliff. And because the less people that have children, that's less children to have even less children. It's a very fast twist down the drain. And I think that one of the biggest problems in our future is going to be too little population, not too much. And I think this is encouraging the Western world, while in certain other parts of the world they're pushing children. I mean, China's pushing like 3 children. Where for years they had that one-child policy and it bit them.
Yeah, and there's some analysts out there that I've seen that are actually, I mean, that one in particular is saying that China, I mean, they held that policy for too long, which might also be an argument for trying to use the government to manage your population growth. Maybe not a great idea, but they're already like too late. I mean, he in fact is saying, China may be done in a decade.
That's why they're trying so hard right now, and they're paying people. South Korea's they're going to go off a cliff much sooner than everybody else, and they're actually paying them something like $600 or $700 a month per child or something like that to have children. So I mean, they can see it coming.
Well, I mean, I will say in the caveat to all of that is, to each his own. I mean, if you don't want to have kids, but it is an interesting conversation to have. It's one thing at a personal level, but then you take it at a societal, society level. Obviously, if everyone chooses to do that, then said society will, it'll wither away. So.
I mean, if you want to destroy a civilization from within, just disrupt their birth rate. That's going to have a big effect right there. And then turn the sexes against each other and make them adversarial instead of what we have been for thousands of years, which is toiling together through difficult times, right? I mean, yes, you can say a lot of things about how men treated women, et cetera, but overall, everybody just had to work really hard. It's only been within the last, 100 years, 120 years that, automation of things and life became easier, and really not since the 60s, when birth control became widely available, that you could really even control your family and your birth rate. So But I do think that if you China obviously owns TikTok, and if you want to push an agenda, that's a way to do it. Is to make videos glorifying a childless life. But my children are the greatest thing I ever did. Not that I really did it, but they're my greatest joy. And for me, I couldn't imagine not having them, and I couldn't imagine just missing that love in my life. And, TikTok isn't going to hold your hand when you're in the, old folks' home and tell you they love you. That's going to be your children and your family. And to me, children are worth it. They're worth the struggle, and they're worth just the pain and suffering you go through raising them. But I think that encouraging people, childless is so much more fun. There's just a lot to that. And by the time you figure out that maybe you shouldn't have taken that path, sometimes it's too late.
Well, and that's, I'm hearing there's even people that are, at a younger age, doing things like freezing embryos and I don't know how I happened upon. I think it's one of Jordan Peterson podcasts or something that I listened to, and wow, I didn't even. My oldest is 17, so I haven't started to. I mean, obviously, I have worries, but not intentional thoughts of, hey, all right, starting a family and all that kind of stuff. But even down to a lot of the 20-somethings choosing just not to marry. Really not even to date, not to engage. And I mean,
I'll have some more to say about that on the other side.
Well,
more to say on that.
You want to take it to a break?
Yeah, let's take it to a break, and we'll talk a little bit more.
All right. Let me get.
But I will say that all of y'all look up Dinks and look up those videos. It's quite amusing to watch them. They're very smug. Welcome back. It's Lee, and I am sitting in for Phil Williams today and enjoying our conversation on Dinks, dual income, no kids, where they're just all over Twitter talking about how awesome it is to not have children, which I personally think is kind of pushed in a societal way, especially on Western countries. Don't have kids, they even tried ecologically, it's better for the planet if you don't have kids. Notice they're not saying that to every country, just Western countries. I've got a lot of great comments. Jerry from Decatur, it's a progressive answers to low birth weight and abortion, maybe open borders, just to sustain a workforce that will meet our nation's needs. Let's keep on playing God. I'm sure all our efforts will backfire. I just don't know if importing the loss of population, I think that it can change the overall culture when you import another culture into the United States. And I think we can't just replace our population loss with another country, because eventually it's going to fundamentally change who we are. I think immigrants are fantastic and I think they're needed, but I don't think you use them to replace the birth rate. What do you think, Better?
Yeah, I think, I think if you go relative to history, the conditions that we're living in are, and you mentioned earlier, things like birth control and the modern technologies and the ease of life, the people, just the medical system, the people that are alive today that shouldn't, I'll say shouldn't or wouldn't have been alive, 100 years ago. I don't know that we've really had enough data points to really understand the cause and effects of a lot of this stuff. So, a lot of that discussion of immigration and and I don't know. If anybody's got any ideas on a time in history when a society intentionally decreased themselves, but I don't know that that's necessarily been that much. Like, you really haven't had much of a choice.
Successful.
Yeah, you haven't had that much of a choice. People were having kids, and your birth rate and all that kind of stuff. Not much you could do about it. I
just don't think, they could do a study true birth control, because you didn't have control over it. But I will say this, we're in kind of a controlled study right now when you look at Europe and seeing some of the, because you bring in populations that won't assimilate at all. You're just bringing in where you have pockets in your own country of another country instead of assimilation and melting pot like the U.S. always used to be. In Europe, it's just very much just, no-go zones and places where it's, a little version of their country and not in a good way. So I think you can see that right now. And I haven't really seen anywhere in Europe that it's been very successful. They're really starting to push back and elect much more conservative leaders in countries that's never happened before.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And so if you sit back and are going to take the, have the attitude of, hey, the immigrants, the people coming in are going to replace our population, then don't be unhappy when you turn around and they can outvote you in a democratic society. And,
exactly.
And
that's the way it will go.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the way it will go. And then you just have less and less. And I think it just overall dilutes the culture of the United States, because we do have a culture, even though we're a melting pot. So I would just say you have to be very careful on your path as far as that goes. I loved a response I got from Marcus in Huntsville about Dinks. He said, I don't believe people have to have kids, but people that don't have kids trying to explain to the people that have them why they're better off is asinine. People that don't have kids don't know what it's like to have them, but people that have kids remember what it was like before children. I think that's 100% correct. You really can't know.
So what are the folks that are trending on X? What was the age of
20s?
20s?
Yeah.
So there's also the, perspective of what the heck. I thought I knew a lot when I was 20 and now, in my 40s, I know that I knew very much nothing. So whether you have kids or don't have kids, even if you've got kids as a 20-year-old, great.
Yeah. I've looked at my 20-year-old child and have said before, I'm so glad you have it figured out.
Yes.
It's awesome. Yes. Because I know they don't, but, they'll.
I'm a little envious of the bliss that you have, and the thought that everything, I got it all figured out. So
actually, my oldest pretty much does have it figured out. This child is a very high level, high functioning, determined child, and don't worry a bit about that one. The younger ones, I don't know. We'll wait and see. But what I think about all this is kind of I think a long term result of feminism, right? You don't need children, and really when you look at it as a whole, how there's not even a lot of dating and a lot of marriage is that whole women need men like a fish need a bicycle line that was big in feminism in the 60s and 70s, right? So I think a lot of it is just let's put these two groups, pit them against each other, and cause mistrust, confusion, make dating difficult. And I'm so surprised at how fast that's happened and how different it is for my kids than it was for me. I mean, it's radically different. Do you not think? I mean,
Well, I think there's, just in the last 10 or 15 years we've had, but the internet, when we were growing up, the internet just has changed the fundamental face of society and how we communicate. Yeah. In a lot of really great ways and a lot of not so great ways. Although I would argue, before everybody goes and jumps on the bandwagon, that internet and social media have ruined everything. People haven't fundamentally changed. We're about the same as we've always been.
There's nothing new under the sun ever, but I think there's just new ways to confuse them and new ways to feel left out and to feel less than. And social media does contribute.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I think we're going to take it to a break. And when we come back, are you expecting a caller?
I am. We're going to start talking about libraries next hour.
All right. Awesome. We'll see you guys in just a minute.
We're back. We're back. This is Lee from Huntsville sitting in for Phil Williams, and this is Alabama most syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio, Phil Williams show. Lee sitting in from the Rightside Studios, local, state, national, got all the issues, solid conservative and just plain right. Had a couple of great texts, and I just thought I'd have to mention. But John from Huntsville said, I thought DINK stood for double intoxicated numerous kids. LOL. For some, that is a definite yes. Unfortunately, the double intoxicated also usually have many more kids than they probably should. But I think that it's a great subject. And JT from Lacey Springs said, my calculation may be a bit off, but since Biden has been in office, migration's equal to 1 out of every 75 U.S. families having a child. Yeah, I don't know your numbers, but I could definitely see that as being accurate. Yeah. So we have to think about that. We're going to move on to a second dipper, and we're going to talk this next hour about the libraries in Alabama. I feel has touched a lot on this over the past few months, and I wanted to bring on Elizabeth from Moms for Liberty to kind of give us a high-level segment on what's happening in the state of Alabama and how our libraries can, kind of put into effect what the governor has asked for. So I'm going to go ahead and bring Elizabeth on. How are you doing, Elizabeth?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I am doing great. Can you kind of give us a 30,000-foot view of what's happening, kind of what the governor asked for and, what the library systems are doing?
Yes. So I think we'll actually take a step back and even go to the national level. So this is a national conversation that is being had, and it's been going on the last couple of years, and predominantly it's because the head of the American Library Association, Emily Drabinsky, is an outspoken Marxist. That is her self-proclaimed status, and she has openly stated that it is her goal to put queer material in the minor section of libraries across the country. And the way that happens is that the American Library Association is really the only professional development arm for libraries, and it has been this way for decades.
Okay.
So what's going on in Alabama is that every local library system in Alabama is currently incorporating aspects of the American Library Association's policies via the Freedom to Read statement or the Library Bill of Rights. And they also sometimes use taxpayer dollars to fund memberships. And with all of this comes book recommendations from the American Library Association. And I think it's important to note so much of the discussion, I find people in Alabama going, this can't be happening. I think you're exaggerating it. These are not classic books. Nobody is worried about classic books. The entire investigation that Governor Ivey did into the entire state library system is involving books that, for the most part, have been introduced in the last 10 to 15 years. These are books, when we refer to sexually explicit, this is referring to very, very detailed, sometimes pictorial, but very detailed scenes, typically involving minors engaging in kinky, I would just use the word on the radio, kinky sexual acts, sometimes with adults watching. A lot of these books are even pictorial. They're being found in the comic sections of libraries. And so complaints occurred. And the governor did a lengthy, multi-month, statewide investigation that concluded in the late summer. And she's written numerous letters, but October 4th was a very prominent one that made national news. And it was directed to the Alabama Public Library Service. And this is important because, just for your listeners, there's two legislative pieces to this. The Alabama Public Library Service is funded out of the Alabama legislature, over $6 million a year currently. And they have a director, Dr. Nancy Pack, and they put out their own policies. They give suggestions to libraries. But in addition, every local library system in the state is independently operated and policy-wise by their library board. So the letter addressed both of these because cleaning up the libraries involves the legislative arm, but also local citizens engaging with their own library boards and their own specific policies. And she said, your submission to Alabama Public Library Service makes it clear that parents are alone with no support from libraries to prevent their children from being exposed to these materials. She's referring to sexually explicit materials. And regrettably, local library policies you submitted generally fail to support parents hoping to protect their children from this content. And she goes on to really challenge libraries that while, of course, it's a parental rights issue, that doesn't absolve a library from doing their due diligence. You should have books in appropriate sections. You should have policies in place that prevent a minor child from checking out adult material. You shouldn't be having inappropriate displays in a child's section. And it's not all on a parent to ensure that your library is laid out in an appropriate fashion.
Do they have?
And she made.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Is there any guidelines as far as what is appropriate for what age group? Because I know there's three age groups.
Yes, you're correct. So really in regards to the American Library Association, all libraries across the country are set up with a children's, juvenile, and young adult section. All of these are minor children. Everybody is under 18, any of those categories. And when people say juvenile, that's first grade. You're talking 7-year-olds. I have an 8-year-old son, so he's in second grade. So it's very personal to me. A lot of these books are in the juvenile section. I'm thinking that's second grader. And the policies are extremely loose. They're, for instance, they do vary. Athens Limestone has selection policy. There are states that they want a lot of sexual content with no objective criteria for placement or purchase. Huntsville, Madison, we'll get into that later, they don't really have selection criteria. And that's really the norm. And so what she specifically says to Alabama Public Library Service, the governor states that she wants to make state aid for local libraries contingent on the adoption of sensible policies to facilitate greater parental supervision of their children. She also wants to reaffirm local libraries' ability to respond to parental concerns about sexually explicit or inappropriate materials. She goes on to also talk about the funding to the American Library Association. So you'll see that's the two arms. The legislative arm is going to have to involve APLS changing their policies at the state level. But even if that happens, which hopefully it will, in session, as of right now, the state can take money away from local libraries, but they're not in a position to force local libraries to make a certain policy change. So what we're trying to do as an organization and statewide is encourage citizens to start going to these library board meetings, looking at the policy and going, okay, is there a policy that is about screening books before they're placed on shelves? Is there separation of adult material from minor children? The ALA, you can research, has most controversial book lists. I would encourage citizens to look those up, read book reviews on them. You will be shocked what's in those books, and you'll be shocked how many of those books are in your local library.
I know you've shown some to different Republican groups, and the people there were shocked that those were actually in the library. And I think most people think that, I think most people think maybe that the kids can't check them out because they're children, but there's no library anymore checking out the books. It's just scanning, and there's no real, am I correct? There's no real, they can check out whatever book they want to.
It depends on the library system. So in defense of my library, for the most part, the librarian does check it out. But I have confirmed this week at my own library. We have self-checkout. There is no current software system being used in Alabama that APLS, Alabama Public Library System Services, has put out for the state or local systems that flag books that are above a child's age. So every child can have their own library card, and it requires a parent to give their birth date. So both of my children have a minor library card. I have a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old. But my son can go into the library and check out a book in an adult section that is filled with pictorial, graphic, sexual content. And we are getting reports of that happening in North Alabama. And the Huntsville-Madison library system is super busy, crazy amounts of foot traffic, predominantly at self-checkout. And there is no system in place to prevent a minor child from checking out inappropriate books, even though they've asked the parent to give the birth date and get their own library card.
Interesting. That just seems IT-wise would be an easy fix, but I don't know. Well,
it seems like it.
I appreciate you giving us that high level because we need to know this. I think information, is a key that everybody has to understand what's happening right now. But, okay, we've got to go to commercial here, but we're going to bring on another library expert in the next segment. But thank you so much, Elizabeth.
Thank you all. Please follow up with your legislators, but also your local library board.
Great. Thank you so much. All right, we're gonna head to break, but stay tuned. There's more. We're gonna talk to someone from a city that is making some real changes to their library, kind of giving us an example of what we can do. We'll be back shortly. We're back. This is Lee in for Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. And we have been having a conversation about Alabama's public library system. And I had an interesting question from Butters. He was like, but do people really use the library? And I say, yes, they do, actually. And I don't care how many people or what percentage. It's still our tax dollars, and we have a right to understand where they're going and how they're being spent. So this segment I'm going to have on Chuck with Clean Up Alabama. So they are a group that has worked diligently to, I guess statewide. You'll have to tell me, Chuck, but to help, clean up our libraries and get some of this filth out of there. And there was actually, and you tell me, Chuck, but there was a group actually formed in response to your group.
That's right. Our Watauga-Prattville Public Library. Mm-hmm. And, we just started noticing, hey, there's some books in the preschool section about, promoting all these kind of woke ideas for the very young kids. And, somebody from our group scheduled a meeting with the library director just to kind of ask questions about it, like, hey, how did these books get here? And, what's the reason for purchasing these books? Because, no matter what, it seems a little odd to be in Watauga County in Alabama, and we're teaching our kids, the values of Los Angeles and Seattle, right?
Right.
And so the director very kindly and professionally, she said, well, actually, nobody has checked out these books. We don't actually determine the books. Obviously they have the final say, but she said, basically we go off of this list that a vendor gives us called the Ingram Group. And Ingram Group proposes books that they think will be popular in our area. And then we basically just kind of look over the list, sign, click buy.
So they're not researching the books. They're not researching them or looking into them. They're just taking recommendations.
Right. And if you press them on it, and if you say, like, hey, it's your responsibility to be curating the content of your library, they'll say, oh, we don't have the resources. We don't have the time to be checking into every single book. I mean, I think they do probably, do a quick look up and see if there are any red flags to them. But I don't, obviously they were willing to say that for the most part, they rely on the vendor for that.
Interesting. Okay.
And so one of a lady from our group, Hannah, she decided, well, I need to go to the library board, and maybe they're not aware of this. Mm-hmm. She goes to the library board meeting and says, hey guys, we've got, these kinds of books in the preschool section, and then we've also got some sexually explicit stuff in the juvenile fiction, right, the 8 to 12. Mm-hmm. And their reaction, instead of saying, oh, thank you for bringing this to our attention, we need to do something about this, they were very reactionary and said, well, look, we are not in the business of enforcing standards of appropriateness. Mm-hmm. It's not on library boards or library staff to police what your children are exposed to. Right? That's kind of the line they go with. Instead, it's solely on the parents, which I think has been a really important distinction to make, right? That you can say, as Governor Ivey did in her letter to Nancy Pack, that parents bear the ultimate responsibility for what their children are exposed to, but they don't bear the sole responsibility, right? It's a false dichotomy. It's not an either-or where it's either the parents or the library. Right. Parents should be able to expect that they can take their children into the children's section of a public library and nothing in there would be inappropriate for them.
Agreed.
But the library board embracing, I don't know how deep you want me to take this, but a subjectivist theory of truth, right? This notion that no one can know objectively whether or not a certain book is inappropriate for minors. And so
garbage. Of course they can.
So often, right, we get met with the criticism, well, if you don't like a book, don't check it out. And what I say to that is you're misunderstanding our point. We are not saying we don't like a book. We're not saying we don't like these books. We're saying these books are objectively harmful, and objectively in the sense that even if you or I didn't believe it, it would still be true.
So tell me what, quickly, because we got just a little over a minute, tell me what they were doing in Prattville. What's happening there?
Sure. So in Prattville, the library board is appointed half by the city council and half by the county commission. Mm-hmm. And the city council has over and over again said they do not want to be involved. They're just going to go with whoever the library board recommends to be appointed to the board, and they're not going to exercise any oversight over them.
Okay.
The county commission recently has decided they're going to appoint their members that they think would be good for the library board and not wait on the library board to make a recommendation to them, right? There's kind of this self-appointing that's been going on where the board has always made recommendations, the city and county have always just approved whoever it is.
So some rubber stamping.
Right. So the county has said, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to, we're going to appoint the people who we think will be good for the library board. So they did that a couple of weeks ago, and then within a week, I think all of the existing library board members resigned. I think they saw that the county commission was not going to continue down this path of just going with whatever the board recommends. And then here, last Tuesday, they appointed 3 more people. The county commission appointed 3 more people. We don't know for sure how they're going to govern, but we've got new members.
Okay, well, something to work with. Well, we've got to jump for a break, but thank you so much for giving us that information. We'll be right back with a little bit more about Madison County. Perpetuating library board. That just doesn't sound like a good idea. Sounds like a place that maybe, you can end up with California values in an Alabama small town. So I've got another guest coming on. This is Carissa with Moms for Liberty, as she has a background in library science and has a detailed understanding, and want to talk a little bit about what's going on in the Huntsville-Madison County library system. And glad to have you on, Carissa. Talk to me.
Glad to be here.
Talk to me a little bit about what's going on and what the changes we're trying to implement in the Madison County Huntsville Public Library.
All right. Well, I came on board in September, just became more aware of this in early September. And in mid-September, we heard that the Huntsville-Madison County executive director and some of the board members had decided that they would relocate some of the young adult books that had questionable content, sexual content, to the adult section. And I actually went to the library board meeting that they had September 20th to thank them for doing that. It all seemed very positive. And then in about a week, there were news reports from 1819 News and others that the library was suspending those relocations. And some of the books that had already been moved were being moved back to the young adult section. And the way the article made it sound, in my impression, is that some of the branch managers and branch librarians just were not on board with moving the sexual content that was inappropriate up to the adult section. And I do think a policy needs to be in place, and that's what the board seems to be working on right now.
Okay.
I get this impression also that both with the Limestone County and with the Madison County, that they're wanting more from the state, from the Alabama public library system. But I also think at some point, like one of your callers earlier was stating, these are their own identities right here. And locally, they could make a stand and go ahead and do a policy that keeps the sexual content out of our children and young adult sections and be a leader in our state.
And I've noticed there's been, I think the city of Foley really upended a lot of things and rewrote their I don't know what you call it, bylaws. But essentially, is that what we're looking to do here? Is that what we should be looking to do in every library system in the state? Because I don't think most people know that the American Library Association, did they not come in and assist a lot of these library systems, the ALA?
They do.
Yeah.
Yes. And and it is the monopoly out there, the American Library Association. They've had the corner market on training and collection development. They have their own library bill of rights. And libraries have just come along and just adopted that. Oh, here's something that's already pre-written, read over it. Yeah, we agree. And some of that was put in place decades ago. What libraries need to do now, what the boards need to do, is go in and look at those policies and decide, is this really what we want our community library, our local library, to adhere to? And the American Library Association has always been liberal, but there's been such a change even in the last 5 to 10 years, just a huge push toward gender identity, alternative lifestyles. And I know that there's people in the community that believe that, but so much of the sexual content is in those books as they try to push this agenda. And the board is going to have to make decisions, and that's why it's important to pay attention to city elections and county elections, because county commissioners and city councilmen are the ones who select who's on your library board. And so it really does come down to local politics. But the boards need to determine, where are we going to draw the line, what is sexually acceptable in books and what is not. And that seems very obvious to a lot of us. But, we really need to be supporting our board and letting the boards know what we feel. So
what about the accusation? Oh, I'm sorry. What about the accusation that we're banning books, or that people who want a book moved are banning books?
It's not true, and it's hard to get someone on that side to listen. A truly banned book means that you cannot go to Barnes & Noble or you cannot go to Amazon.com and find it. It's completely taken away from anyone being able to put their hands on it. We're not even asking the libraries to remove these books from the library. Right. We are asking that they be moved up to an adult section. And I know you spoke earlier about the fact that there's not a software in place right now that would flag someone if, flag a kid's card that they're trying to check out an adult book.
Mm-hmm.
And I realize that, a parent can go in there and check out the adult book and give it to their kid if they want their child to read that.
Mm-hmm.
But we want to be able to have a safe place for children to go to the library and just want to wander around. If mom's out with her kids, hey, we've got 30 minutes before this next appointment. Let's just stop at the library. Y'all go pick out 3 books.
Or just a reading hour, like the kids' reading hour. Yeah, there's a lot of parents and young children at these reading times.
Mm-hmm. And the ALA really has the mindset of it is the librarian's role to provide sexual content material of all types and kinds. And we feel like it's the parent's role. So that's another reason to disaffiliate with the ALA and have local library boards write their own policy or amend their own policies to protect our children.
Yeah. And it feels like there's a lot of pushback on what is just common sense. I mean, you have to have a policy in place that tells you what's appropriate for what section. But just like the Supreme Court once said, they couldn't necessarily define pornography, but they know it when they see it. As a parent, when you see a book that's just not appropriate. And these librarians and the people that work in the library system should be able to have some set standards. Nobody's saying that if you want your child to have one of these outrageous books that you just can't check it out yourself and provide it to them. We're letting the parents have the choice there. But my question is, why is it that two-pronged, that they're displaying these books? It's not just being on the shelf. People need to understand they're actively displaying them. And because kids are going to go to these displays first. And not only that, but these kids, especially in the Huntsville-Madison County, they're checking these out themselves. They're just scanning them walking out. And there's no alert on a child's card that they can't check out above the, like if say they're 8 years old and they're checking something out of an adult section that nobody even knows. I just think that sounds like a very easy fix.
And it can't be that hard to do if the software is already there for someone to be able to write some code. Because if a minor tries to buy beer at Publix through a self-checkout, it flags for a cashier to come over and check an ID.
Right.
So, we know that it is out there.
And I think it's pretty simple, especially if they have to provide their age, their date of birth, when they get the library card. You could just go off of that. I don't know. To me, it seems simple, and it seems like that a lot of times the pushback seems disingenuous to me.
Yes. Now, you brought up banning books. Another thing that we hear a lot is censorship. And people who really truly feel like, we fought in world wars. We're here to have freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of all this stuff. But we're talking about children. So again, censorship, it's not censorship to protect children from sexual content. That used to be common sense. You still see that in media. You still see that, again, with purchasing alcohol. There's guidelines in place because a child's brain is not developed to see these images and to understand the trauma of a description of rape that's in a story. It's too much for young kids. I mean, it's a lot for adults to handle, but it's really too much for kids. And it's not censorship to protect kids. It's really not. It's not censorship to move books to another location in the library. That way parents can get them if they want their kids to have them. But to be able to just have a collection of quality materials that doesn't contain sexually explicit content is our goal.
And I think the argument of, well, how many people use the library or, I think it's sad because a lot of people that use the libraries, maybe because they can't afford to buy the books. They check them out because they can't afford to purchase them. And their kids don't deserve any less than people who can afford it. And our tax dollars need to be spent in a responsible way, I just think just responsible. It's not censorship, it's responsibility.
It is. And a library is a certain size.
Right.
So you only have a certain amount of space that you can have. And not every book that's printed or published has to be put in a library. There needs to be some kind of collection development procedures that are not written by the ALA, but written by a local board.
so we can have local input, Alabama values, not California values. Can you tell everybody how to look up Moms for Liberty and what they're about and what's happening with them?
Yes, you can Google Moms for Liberty and get some information on that from the website. And Moms for Liberty it came about during the COVID shutdown years as parents were finding out what was actually being taught in schools and what was actually in their public libraries. And it also consists of dads and aunts and uncles and grandparents who are concerned about what is being taught in government schools and in government-run libraries. And, you go to the website, you can find some information. There'll be an email or a number that'll connect you with a local person.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much.
Can I jump in with one quick question? Sure. We've got this complex rating system with TV and movies and all that kind of stuff. How has that not been implemented in this book? I mean, to try and sit there and say that this is unprecedented, that we would expect that this would be controlled in some way. How has that not been just an easy fix?
That is a great question, and I know people like Hannah Reese down in Prattville and others that are working on this, and they've created some of those, and there's others I found online that do have a 1 to 5 or 0 to 5 rating. But I do know that public libraries and public schools are exempt from, being fined or sued for sexual content. There's some kind of exemption that is in place, and I don't have that paperwork in front of me, but it protects libraries and schools from that. So they're allowed to have whatever sexual content they want.
Well, it sounds like we need to have more of an opinion as the people who live in Alabama and in these counties on what's happening in our libraries. I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much and for that information. And hopefully we'll have you on again, maybe talking about some changes that have been made. But
that would be wonderful. I would hope so.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. All right, guys. Well, we're going to head to a break, and we'll be right back. A little more commentary on the library system before moving on to my next dipper about a cacophony of noise. back. This is Lee in for Phil Williams for Rightside Radio, and we've been talking libraries all hour. It's a lot of information, isn't it, Butters?
Yeah. I have to confess, I'm not a voracious reader. I spend more time consuming video. YouTube is my friend, but man, this is crazy. You talked about it earlier, but local government. I mean, if it's got government funds and government boards and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. This is not just a thing you're going to find at libraries. It's very interesting stuff.
I agree. And I think they almost try to obfuscate or make the information confusing or to confuse the issue because they don't really want the books out, honestly.
Yeah, that's especially when you look at the way it's coming through from, what was that, Ingram Content Group.
Yeah.
Look those guys up. Encourage you guys to go check them out and providing book lists and all that kind of stuff. So I think we've hit the easy button, assuming that it is a common sense thing to so many of us, and it turns out it's not. So yep. I want to make one quick plug. From the Cleanup Alabama. Want to encourage everybody to check out cleanupalabama.org is the website, and you can find they've got a state petition for the state of Alabama trying to get legislation passed to help regulate some of the stuff in the libraries. So
great,
go
check it out.
Yeah, cleanupalabama.com.
Oh, .org.
Oh, .org. Sorry about that.
Okay, well, I think it's good to have more information. So I encourage everybody to go take a look at that. Go take a look at Moms for Liberty website, and just see what's happening. Because guys, it really does affect you. It really does. Local affects more than national. National is interesting and fun, but really, where you're going to see something that affects your everyday life is going to be local. So I think we've got a caller. Is that Sparky?
Yeah.
Hey there.
Hey, good show.
Thank
Very
you.
Super interesting topic, and of course disturbing for me as a father of daughters and a grandfather of a granddaughter.
Yeah.
The notion that a lot of far left socialist people have infiltrated the government and are dictating policy over the Department of Defense, super disturbing for me as a veteran. But to poison the minds of kids, just to, I don't know, really, their own personal rebellion against everything conservative and everything proper and Christian, I think. Everything traditionally American. Mom's apple pie, two-parent families. It's really all it is. It's a big thumb in the eye from people who have found themselves in a position to influence. In this case, influence little kids who are going to end up pretty screwed up, in my opinion, when they've been told, when they get told gender doesn't really exist, it's whatever you feel like. Oh, you're confused, here, go to the doctor and get put on Ritalin or lithium or whatever other mind-altering drugs they can do to make these kids more jacked up and then completely dependent upon the government someday. Mm-hmm. It's really strong parents. Strong parents. My daughter is a great, strong parent, and my granddaughter's 18. She's going to graduate in May from high school, and she's so smart. And for 18 years old, pretty conservative. And I'm like, I see what the formula is, and that's attentive parents, attentive grandparents, even attentive families. Hey, we're not going to have this. There are two genders, and all this other stuff is the flavor of the month rebellion by people who just want to stick it to conservatives, religious people, Christians, and Republicans, and it's tragic. Talk about, it's not even polarized because it's a pogrom. It's a formula, and there's a machine that says this is how it's going to be, especially when we've got power in Washington.
Mm-hmm. I think it's, when you say I want the parents to be in control, I think we also expect, though, as parents, for there to be a fail-safe, that if we're not there, at least the appropriate information would be, and the appropriate books would be in the right section. I'm not saying somebody can't make a choice to give their kids these books. They can. We have a free country, and they have the right to do that. But I think that we need to protect children's innocence. It's important.
I agree 100%, and I learned a lot myself growing up in the 60s. My father, God love him, he's long past now, leaving Playboys all around the house. I mean, I considered that, I guess at the time, fairly normal. But in the end, I was really glad I had a great mom and great family and great friends who helped put everything in context. I didn't grow up to be somebody who thought all girls needed to look like those girls in Playboy or Penthouse or whatever.
Right.
I knew that there were true loving relationships, and that's what we need to strive for. So,
I
anyway,
agree.
you
I
parents
agree.
parents out there, keep up the hard work, because it's hard work. You can't let down, because the school systems aren't looking out for the welfare of your kids, and certainly the library systems are not.
Right. I totally agree. Well, thank you so much, Sparky. I appreciate that.
I appreciate it. Good show.
Thank
Good
you.
job.
Thank you. Yeah, Butters, I think it's kind of a dual responsibility here. I think it does weigh heavier on the parents, but I think the responsibility of the library is to curate and to do their best to put the appropriate information in front of the appropriate age. Yep. All right. Well, we will be back on the other side to talk more about information, a cacophony of noise. Syndicated News Talk Leader, Rightside Radio. This is Lee in for Phil Williams. We are in the Rightside studios with our local, state, and national, discussing all the issues, solid, conservative, and just plain right. That was an interesting hour, Butters, talking about the library issues. And I got a couple of texts on that I found interesting. John, this is John from Highway 20, wherever you are on Highway 20 there, John. He had some interesting comments saying nothing's stopping. There's nothing to stop kids from going to the adult section and reading the material in the libraries either. He says, I'm saying there's ways to distinguish kids within the system. Most libraries also note JF for junior fiction or NF or NF for adult versions. He said he worked in libraries for over 10 years. So there's ways to distinguish the different kinds of books. So
yeah, this can't be anything new.
No.
So I don't know, but it's very informative. And I think it's a symptom of a local government, a local, community problem.
Yeah.
There's so many other, pick so many other topics and so many other issues. It speaks so much to, like what's going on with the presidential, debates and that's all important. But what's really going to matter to your kid tomorrow is your local, your library board and your local
county commissioners.
Commissioners. Like, you've got to pay attention to that stuff.
I totally agree. And I think that's I think apathy is the true enemy of all of this. Just counting on other people to do things for you, counting on the library to curate everything. And I'm pointing the finger at myself too.
I'm there. Folks have probably heard Phil. We talked about the rendering plan issue that we had here locally in Gadsden, Etowah County, and that opened my eyes. I was one that was sitting there going, like school boards and city councils, like that's something that my mom and my grandma, my grandfather did. That's not me. And then you go, oh, wait a second. Yeah. We've kind of been on autopilot, I feel like. And,
agreed.
Don't want to take that responsibility. And they
know it. Yeah. And they know they can do what they like, and people just don't seem to notice. And that's the problem, is when you shine the light on a bad behavior, people tend to scatter, like roaches when you turn the light on. It's like, whoa, no, we don't want light shine on anything. I think what we need to do is pay a lot more attention on local and on our county commissioners, on our delegates, like everything local. Do we want people who are actual Republicans or squishy Republicans, right? What do we want for our towns, our counties? It doesn't matter that we're a deep red state if we're not paying attention to who's running things.
Yeah. Well, and that's, you can see, especially here in the state of Alabama.
Yeah.
I think you take, being a conservative for granted. There are plenty of politicians or people that are interested in running, that they know, hey, if I got a D next to my name on the ballot, I got no chance. So what are they doing? They're jumping into your Republican, because I've got to have an endorsement by somebody.
Right.
So yeah, you better not. You maybe not do a straight ticket. Like you need to go investigate, because your local state representative, your local state senator, they might have a bigger impact on your life than you think.
For certain. And I believe that during the big switch, kind of when the Republicans took the majority in the state and then really did a super majority, there was a lot of those old, blue dog Democrats or whatever. They just slapped an R on there. If you cut through the red, you'll find the blue underneath. That is just the truth. And what they're in it for is aggrandizement, self-enrichment, just like a lot of politicians. What you have to figure out is, and you have to hold their feet to the fire. And when we've talked to some of these people in state government, in senators and representatives, they don't really want. They always try to pass the buck on the library issue. Oh, well, that's not a legislative issue, or that's not, this is local or whatever. I'm like, but you're funding them. If you want to affect change, hit somebody in the pocketbook and find out how fast the library rewrites and does things differently when they're going to lose their funding.
Oh yeah. Well, and that's to circle back to that. I was thinking, what is the funding that comes from the national level versus the state level?
The national level, now I'm not an expert on this, but from what I know, the national is more like the ALA is more providing like training and, advising and things like that. They're not funding that. We actually fund them by the libraries being members, but the state funds a certain amount. The local, like the city of Huntsville, I believe they fund like $5 million into the Huntsville-Madison County Library. I think the mayor should be like, we should be able to walk up to the mayor and say, you approve of these books in the library because you're giving them $5 million. Do you want them to spend on this book? We need to ask them in public forums, politely, of course, but they're going to have to answer and say, yes, I support this, or no, I don't.
Well, and John from Highway 20, as he's in our system, said national funds, lots of money in grants. That's what I would imagine. So an 80-20 match, and that's, there's, if your tax dollars are tied up into it, if you hear anybody that's at the state political level, or anybody in politics saying, "Oh, that's not my problem," it is,
and they do. And this is a common why, because they don't want to come forward and take a stand on something that may come back to haunt them, in the sense of somebody calling them a phobe of whatever you want to say, right? Or saying they're bigoted or whatever. They don't want it. They're very scared of taking a stand on anything. Whereas this is literally just basic as it gets. Just put a rating system and have a child not be able to check out a book above their rating system. And I also believe that parents should be sent an email when their child checks out a book, so you know what book your child's checked out, even if it's within their age group. Because maybe that's not something you think is appropriate as a parent. We are the ultimate arbiter of what our children read and take in and digest. We should be, as responsible parents, because what I think is okay may not be my next door neighbor's idea of okay. And I think that, as parents, we have to control that, and we have to stay on top of that, and we can't abdicate our responsibility to the libraries and hope that they're doing something, because they're not. And I just think that, but as we're taxpayers, and ultimately these senators and representatives and city government are all spending the money that we give them.
Oh yeah.
And make them stand on their decision. Well,
and I mean, we kind of turned this into a conversation about local politics, but I think that is, okay, how do we solve this? It is remarkable to me to see kind of the vitriol, the pushback when you go, I just want to have a conversation with you, not necessarily accusing. I'm not going to accuse you of anything until I accuse you of something, because you're the way you want to react. How dare you tell me what but you work for me. And obviously we as citizens, when we approach government entities, you got to do it with respect. And you've got to do it in the right way. But it is amazing to see that, how dare you talk to me about this? The
pushback is real. And I even approached a state senator and said, hey, can you kind of take a stand on this and help us figure out how to kind of wave some funding in front of these people and say you might not get it. And at first he told me I wasn't his state senator. I'm like, you are. I looked. I'm positive. And then it's kind of like, well, okay. And yeah, we're doing things. It's just very vague.
Yeah.
And these things happen. But I think that these people are going to have to take a stand, and they're going to have to say either I support it or I don't. And you have to hold their feet to the fire. And that means local. That means state and representative for the state level. That means people up in, up in Washington.
Oh yeah.
Those Richmond, north of Richmond. So.
Well, hey, so we've kind of dragged this dipper on in to another break time. You want to hit a break and then we'll come back and
we'll get on to the noise.
Hit the cacophony.
Yes.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to this. I've enjoyed it, guys. Thanks for all the texts and thanks for chiming in there, John, on some info from your experience with libraries. So we will be right back.
We're back. This is Lee in for Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We're solid conservative and just plain right. I think we've exhausted the library topic, so we are going to move on to the third dipper, a cacophony of noise, which kind of seems like an overwhelming amount of noise, if you will, thereabetters. Just so much noise that, you don't even know what direction it's coming from. Like an Alabama win at the stadium. It's a cacophony of noise. My last one.
I've heard I've heard those in my days at Auburn as well. So
yes, I'm sure you have. Bless you. So I wanted to read a part of an article about this, about consuming too much information, which is kind of what I meant by cacophony of noise. Just there's so much out there. There's so much information. There's so much trying to get your attention, from podcast to radio to TV to, you name it. Everybody's pulling at trying to get someone's attention, and for them to pay attention, and for them to support them and like them and buy their merch, etc. There's just so much. And I was just going to read a bit on this one. So since the beginning of the internet, the volume of information has been growing exponentially. Without even realizing it, we're pumping out unbelievable amounts of data onto the web every day. By unbelievable here, I mean about 2.5 quintillion bytes. I didn't even know that was a thing. Quintillion. Okay. That's a 1 with 18 zeros after it. If you've had a hard time grasping how much that is, you're far from alone. Let's translate this impossible to imagine number into something we all understand. There are so many HD movies on the web today, you would need 47 million years to watch them all. 47 million. There are over 1.8 billion websites out there, and on average, 571 new ones are created every minute. That's how much data we're generating. It's no wonder that information overload has become an issue. The large volume of information is not a problem per se. The real problems are the lack of information quality control on hand, and our inability to control the flow of incoming information on the other hand. Given the situation, it's not surprising that some of us suffer from information overload and feel an urgent need for information detox. Information overload, they define it as information overload is a state of feeling overwhelmed by the volume of information to the point at which one feels more confused than knowledgeable about a particular topic. Information overload can manifest itself as brain fog and difficulty making decisions. Some have labeled it infoxication, like intoxication, info-obesity, and data smog. I like it. I think that consuming so much information, it confuses us more than informs us in some ways. And like I'm sitting here with two TVs on above your head, Butters, and I can see all this information flashing, and it gets my attention as we're, talking or when we go to break. And, I just see where Hunter Biden's been indicted on more tax issues and, spending money on questionable. I did not know that you could take a tax deduction for a category called, quote, women, quote, unquote. Like 800 something thousand that he spent on women. I don't know what that means. Prostitutes, I guess. I don't know. But that's crazy. And that's a deduction. I just don't understand what world they live in. But so you see all this information hitting you all the time. And it's like you know a little bit about everything, but you're a master of none, And I feel like that sometimes we can be overwhelmed, and we can be almost tricked into thinking we truly understand a subject. And I'm a offender on this one as well. You get a little information, you're an expert, right? But sometimes these people on CNN are the same way. Guarantee you they didn't know anything about this subject before they were called and said, hey, you're going to jump on here and talk about it, So I think it's just more, everyone's barfing information out, and it becomes hard to
You definitely, in today's world, you definitely have got to be intentional about your information sources. You've got to understand more about about where you're getting the information from, about the context you're getting the information, and yeah, I mean, you definitely can get completely overwhelmed, and you've got systems that have been well designed to keep you going down rabbit holes of information that don't really add any value to your life. So, is
there a military acronym for that? Too much information? I mean, I know there's TMI, but I'm just saying, like, too much like information coming at you.
No, I mean, I guess from my experiences and guys, I know we got a lot of veterans and military folks in the audience. If you've got a term, nothing's coming to my mind, but one thing that does kind of occur to me from the aviation side of things is managing the information that's coming in, and then trying to use that to make decisions. It's that's a big deal. On the military side of things, now you've got more information than we've ever had, and it makes the battle space more complicated, and that translates directly to our everyday life.
I mean, I think it can give you a false confidence that you really know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Sometimes,
definitely.
Although I do love that, I tend to fact check sometimes, and I'll like pull up the phone and be like, "Are you sure?" And it's funny because I have a child that does that, and they're like, I'm like, okay, I know. But sometimes people's opinions kind of masquerade as facts, and I think you have to really know what you're looking at. And be able to, and I think the way the information comes at you is confusing. When you see like TikTok and all of these very short video, I mean, how long is your average one there? I mean, they're putting out, 10, 15, 20 seconds, maybe?
On TikTok now, I mean, they're getting up towards a minute. But yeah, I mean, yeah.
But if you think about it.
20, 30 seconds, yeah.
The way your brain absorbs information, to get it in 30-second bites, 1-minute bites, is very different than we've ever done it before. And it causes an inability to actually concentrate on or read something for any length of time. I mean, have you caught yourself just stopping reading something because you feel like, yeah, I got enough of that, and you move on? It's like we don't even finish things. It's like we want things in bites and, instant and, and I feel as if it's changed the way our brain is programmed and wired to watch things and to absorb things. I don't think that's a good thing.
No, we're as we'd say in the military, we're PowerPoint deep, and we don't really dive in and become experts. We just want to see PowerPoints. PowerPoint deep. Whew. Give me a slide. Now you need to read. You need to read it about it. Don't just look at the slides.
I agree. Love it.
All right. Well, we'll be back for the last half hour. So
it's gone by fast.
Yes.
Is it out of your head? You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, that was when I heard Slash playing that. I was like, what is that? Oh. And then I saw him in concert and I was just like, oh yeah, that was my jam. Love me some hair bands and all that. Loved it. Good 80s music. So we've got a special guest stop by. So say hello, special guest.
Well, hello, Ruffian Nation. This is Boomer. How is everyone?
Boomer showed up, yay.
I just happened to stop by. I was driving by and I was listening. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to stop in the studio. And then, yeah, that's what I did.
That was awesome.
I was going to jump on with y'all. But hey, I love making a little appearance here and there.
So you're going to confuse everyone.
Right.
We still every day. Where did Boomer go?
Oh.
Where did Boomer go? Where did Boomer go? Now somebody's wait, Boomer's back?
Wait, what is he doing on the air? I'm just jumping in and stealing some waves while Phil's out.
Give us a woo woo.
You mean a one of these?
Yeah. Phil, I miss you. I wish you were here today, but it's okay. I get to see Lee. I gave her a big old hug.
Oh, I'm a good substitute, I guess, for Phil. But he's gonna want to see you in person. I do have a funny text. Someone texted in they really liked infobesity, which I thought was funny. That is too much information for sure. And someone else texted, 1 quintillion is easy to comprehend by a man. It's the length of your honeydew list from your wife.
That's actually pretty good.
I don't know. I hope I don't have 1 quintillion, but I do. It does get long.
Well,
I agree.
See, my honeydew list at home is I have my list, and then my wife has her list. So I only know part of her list, and because it just is ever growing, you know.
Well, stuff is ever breaking, Boomer.
That's just how it is, and I accept it.
Things don't ever stop. There's never equilibrium where you go, nothing's broken. Nothing needs fixing. That just doesn't happen. Not in a household, I don't think. But I'm excited to hear. What do you think about the topic of too much information?
Oh, okay. So right before I walked in, I was listening, and y'all were on that subject of all that too much information and how much is out there, and we're only getting that one little glimpse. I look at it as. Yes, there's too much information in watching, but then everyone is really only geared towards what they're actually tuned into. So if they're only into their Fox or CNN or only to their people that they look on Instagram or Twitter, then because there's so much information out there, I believe that that
echo chamber.
They're going to really dive in with those and think that those are the hear all say all. Like that's it. Like
that's what actually everyone thinks when
it's really not.
Yeah, I think I think anyone can suffer from that. If you consume too much media that is all geared towards, say, conservatism, you're going to have an overinflated sense of that everyone is conservative. But I also think it's the same thing like in California. They can't, or say like Hollywood. I think Hollywood's a really good example. They don't understand that life outside of Hollywood, that people think they're crazy.
Oh yeah, because inside Hollywood, it's just, this is how this is how it is.
Well, it's interesting. My history degree from Auburn. Getting a history degree. I didn't go be a lawyer. I joined the military. Not a whole lot else you can do with that, but one thing that I do appreciate from that academic endeavor is really the critical thinking and understanding of the context of the information you consume. Mm-hmm. So there's no history book that's accurate. There's no story that's accurate. It's all skewed, even so slightly, and that really I experienced in an airplane with 4 people flying the exact same, experiencing the exact same communications on the radio, the exact same information, all of that, and you come back from an hour of flying a complex mission, and all 4 of us had a slightly different story and perspective.
Okay, sorry.
No, I was going to say, yeah.
You've got to understand the context of what you're reading.
You do.
Understand the context, but you look at it in a completely different waveform of what are you thinking about AI? Who programmed AI and what kind of things? So AI is a huge part of now what is out there on the web, on anywhere. I mean,
And doesn't AI really just depend on who programmed it?
Who programmed it?
I mean,
Don't
when
they
you,
have a little bit of bias
Well-
when they
oh,
program
they
it?
do,
Right?
They do.
So that's an interesting. The AI stuff is actually pretty interesting. There's some great interview. I watched an interview with one of the guys from Google that was he helped develop it. I mean, he's a 58-year-old computer science guy. I mean, he's built most of the platforms, and what he really explained with AI. Traditional programming was you figure out the solution and then you write program that redoes that solution. AI is you don't know the answer and you give it to the computer and it figures it out. So to a certain extent, and rather rapidly, like we won't be like, there was a lot of argument that, hey, AI shouldn't even be allowed to be able to write code when they started, because of that kind of stuff. It's a type of computing that we've never experienced. So It's
and
is it just building? Stuff.
Is it just building on its initial programming? Because if you like that Chat GPT,
yep.
I remember someone someone did an experiment of talking, write a poem about to Chat GPT, write a poem about my pride in being black, and it did. And then they did it did the same thing from different races. And white was the only one that it came back and said, I can't do that. That's not considered, and I'm like, wait, someone programmed that in there.
So the interesting thing and the one of the longer interviews that I listened to, I mean, clearly liberal focused. But if you really listen to what he's talking about the technology itself, when he summed it up is, look, we need good people to go in because it's learning. It's a learning technology. Mm-hmm. And so if all the conservatives stay out of AI, guess who's feeding the learning?
True.
It's not a programming thing necessarily. It's pulling the information and it's got to learn. So it needs good, just like a kid.
Curating.
And yes,
that's
it was an interesting. I was like, because of course again, okay, that's you got to understand the perspective, but it is not, and that's the scary thing. And what he was talking about was we will quickly have an entity that is smarter than mankind has ever known by magnitudes of course.
But then that goes also right into your subject of too much information. I mean, because if it's learning and continuing to grow. I mean, how much is it going to? How much is it going to?
It will have the ability to contain a lot of this information, much more than us. But the human brain is the greatest computer we've ever known. Mm. So, if we have trouble with it, I would say it would as well. But in what way? It's just, I think it can be dangerous. It can be dangerous.
It absolutely can be, and again, it's with all the technology. And I saw this as a social media marketer and a guy that has really dug deep into a lot of this. Back when Trump first got elected, and I'd see all of my conservative friends, based on my feed, it's going to be a landslide election. And my liberal friends, based on my feed, it's going to be a landslide election. And you got to understand the technology you're interfacing with. When you've got an algorithm designed to show you
what you want
to keep you in an echo chamber, because their job is they want to just keep you on the platform.
Right.
And so if you don't understand that, then nobody ever talked. Well, no, actually, somebody else is having a completely different conversation. You're just not part of it because you're in the wrong place.
Right.
So.
I think it's better to get your news from aggregate sites. It kind of saves you from being in that where you're seeing all kinds of articles from all different types of publications.
Absolutely.
I think it gives you a little bit better understanding of what other people are thinking, even though it's hard to believe. But I think we all tend to want that echo chamber. Honestly, we all tend to want to believe the worldview is kind of the worldview we subscribe to. Maybe
I think a lot of people do. I mean, that makes everybody's lives easier if that's the case. When in reality, it's not always the case.
I agree. I mean, just like this, I see on Fox News right now, Florida couple gets married inside a car wash. I don't know why in the world you would want to get married inside a car wash, but. My youngest son not too long ago was like, Mom, I don't think I've ever been with you in the car when we went through a car wash. We went through a car wash so he could have the experience of being inside the car during the car wash. Because I'm cheap. We wash the cars at home. And so we went through it and he was just like,
this is amazing.
Yeah. And you know what? This is so special. They chose to get married. That's kind of nuts. And looking at their age, this is definitely a second marriage indulgement here because, I'm not. Yeah, I'd tell my husband, look, this is this ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, and all the stuff going on in the world today, and we're wasting airtime on. I mean, I'm sorry, we're contributing airtime to the car wash.
Yeah, sure.
All right, Butters. I'm just giving an example here of something because at this point we're like squirrel.
I'm poking on Fox News.
Fox News.
The whole
thing on. It's still on.
But remember, what's their job? They want American viewers because they got to sell ads. So
true.
Apparently, that's what people want.
And they know their audience.
Is that what you guys want out there? You want to know more about people getting married and?
No. I wish that was not in my brain. I wish it didn't take up. I want that last 30 seconds back. But yeah, this is the stuff. So it's like fed to us like this, flash, 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 flash. And when you're stopping and concentrating on something different that quickly over and over and over again, your brain rewires itself and how it takes in information.
You got one last thought as we get close to?
I mean, I completely agree because I bet y'all already touched on that, but it's the whole like 8-second swipe thing, or maybe it's less than that. Mm-hmm. It's just I'm not interested. Swipe up, not interested. Swipe. It's the Instagram. It's the Twitter. The instant gratification of moving
TikTok.
on. It's reprogramming our minds even from a young age, because that's where they're really trying to hit now.
Absolutely.
And so when they get older, it's going to be hard to we're
going to be a world full of
ways.
ADD, like nobody can pay attention.
But it's going to be like in work, in everything. And so it's going to be very interesting.
And
will you hang over one more segment with us?
I may be able to.
All right.
We need to focus before we hit the break on one really important thing that John from Huntsville says. What's up, Boomer? I saw you join my Capital One football mania group on the internet.
I did, John, and I'm excited to join in.
So he said, "Good luck, good luck."
I did. I joined in, and I also it is now as the name is just Boomer and McQueen, because I needed McQueen's help because she was apparently second in the college pick'em, I believe, right behind you, John.
You got a good woman. Don't ever let her go.
I need some help.
All right, hang over one more segment. I got a funny story. All right, we will see you guys in just a minute. We're back. This is Lee from Huntsville in for Phil Williams on Rightside Radio, where we're solid, conservative, and just plain right. And we have both Butters and Boomer still in here.
Yeah,
Woo-hoo!
yeah.
Woo-hoo! So I did my own sound effect there. Very excited. We were talking about too much information and kind of ending up. I've got a funny story to tell at the end, but Boomer, do you think the way we consume information now is part of the problem, not just the information itself?
I would say so. Maybe. I mean, what we just talked about on the way out on the last segment, it was talking about the TikToks, the Twitter, the Instagrams, and in the younger generation, that's kind of where they're getting most of their information and trying to get it so quickly. And so they're not but they're not hearing the whole story. That could be part of it too.
Yeah. And how you read things.
Yeah.
I mean, looking at screens versus my oldest liked to read an actual book. And that's just a different experience than looking at a screen or even listening.
Yeah, the paper.
Yeah.
And I get it. I'm not going to lie, I'm not much of a reader myself, but
neither of you.
My wife is. She loves it. My mom is. She loves it. But yeah, there's something different about book versus having a tablet in front of you the whole time. I mean, I don't know. Maybe y'all know this more than I do because I have a little kid growing up through school right now. Are they using actual books now, or are they just using the tablets or things like that for all the information now for textbooks?
Oh no, it's mostly all on computer.
See,
for every system, it's not just the bigger systems. Most of the systems will have some sort of computer, but some will supplement. You'll have both, but I think it's essential to have some books in hand and be flipping the pages. It's a different immersive experience than reading on a screen and swiping or even listening.
That's what
you don't retain as much listening. It's proven, and I know because there's books I've listened to, and then I notice that I've already listened to it once, and I'm like, well, I didn't even remember that. So I mean, it's not, whereas I've read the books I've read.
Well, right. I think it also depends. So I've never been a big reader, and I'm an auditory learner. Like I was a guy. I couldn't skip classes.
Yeah.
When all my friends were doing that, I'm like, I can't. If I could sit through the classes, I just retain the information a whole lot better. But the cool thing is, there's a lot of people that are really looking at how do we learn stuff? What how does the human brain work? We're learning more and more and more, and hopefully there's a lot of people too that are asking the question, like our entire education system.
I think it's a very individual thing, and it's going to be individual learning process. I think everything's going to become more individual. Your learning process, way things are structured for you to learn. Even medicine is going to become much more individual in how you're treated for disease processes and stuff. It's going to be much more targeted, and I think your learning, the way you learn, is going to be much more targeted. All of these things, and in that way, technology is very helpful. Okay, so I've got like a News of the Weird story, and I read it, and it's so funny that I actually committed it to memory because...
You have it to memory?
Oh, yes. So I won't... I just the one thing I don't remember is the town, but it's a township. You know how Pennsylvania has townships?
Right.
Okay. So it's a township in Pennsylvania. This guy did multiple break-ins in a night. The last house he broke in, he knocked over a whole bunch of stuff, broke the handle off a cast iron pan, and then smeared meat on himself. And later it came out that he was high on mushrooms. But I was like, wait a minute. Did they say he broke the handle on a cast iron pan? The heck? Was he on PCP?
What was he doing?
Do you know what you have to do to break the handle on a cast iron pan? That's all one piece. And by God, and somebody broke my cast iron pan.
You'd be mad.
Oh, I'd pick it back up and beat him with it. Because... that was passed down. I have my grandmother's cast iron pan,
and that's what stuck out to you in that story.
I was like, hold up. Did you just say break a handle on a cast iron?
I heard something about covering yourself in meat.
That's what I heard. That's what stuck out to me was covering yourself in meat.
That's the man and woman difference, I think. But I was like, hold up. Oh, when I saw a video online, they were talking, and this was all aimed at, it was a joke. And the guy was showing things you should never do. And one of them, the kid goes, "Hi, Grandma, I washed your cast iron pan really well." And it showed where he had scrubbed it out. And I'm like, I actually sucked in my breath. I was like, not that.
Don't do that.
Your cast iron pan is just, it's your, it's a treasure.
It's a treasure
It's passed down.
So with a minute left,
Okay.
we've got grades in.
Oh.
Do you want to read it, or do you want me to read it?
You read it.
Okay, so Butters, you did a fantastic job today, nearly perfect. So you get an A double plus. Lee, you get an A triple plus, but only because I decided not to take points off your grade for too many positive Alabama comments. Consider that an early Christmas gift.
Thank you, John.
Boomer also gets an A triple plus for his magician-like entrance. And for not talking about Alabama football.
I did not.
So Boomer and Lee are today's co-champions. Congratulations.
There we go.
I love it. That's awesome. Thank you for giving me that Christmas present. It's so good.
I knew with both of y'all showing up, I knew I didn't have a prayer today. So I gave up as soon as Boomer walked in.
You know.
Hey, I was just happy to join in with y'all today. That's what I enjoyed the most, and then I got to make a small appearance and say hello to all the ruffian world out there.
We so love that you stopped by. You're just special. And now they're all going to start over again. Where's Boomer?
What? He just showed up.
He just showed up like a magician.
Maybe I'll do it again one day.
I hope so. Absolutely. Or you'll have to call in and do like Boomer and Lee.
Well, Lee, I've enjoyed it. I think that's going to do it. The music is starting.
It's playing. I've enjoyed it as well. Thank you so much, Butters. We've had a great time.